Hello Internet, my name is Ace Trainer Chris, and this is Making the Case. It's a series where I decide to play devil's advocate for an anime series, usually ones that are widely considered to be bad or hated for seemingly no reason. On today's episode, I want to cover something particularly divisive that is honestly a personal favorite of mine: Sword Art Online. Okay, so if you haven't seen or heard anything about Sword Art Online, welcome, you sweet, innocent, beautiful child. And if you have and haven't clicked off this video yet, thank you. Let me just give you a brief rundown of the SAO Aincrad Arc, which is what I'll be focusing on today. Then I can move on to my defense of the series and kind of white knighting the whole thing. Okay, so, Sword Art Online... Stop that. So, Sword Art Online is a light novel in Japan that received an anime adaptation in 2012. The reception of this adaptation was overwhelmingly positive. Well, at first. Then, as the series progressed, it became the subject of disdain and usually the butt of the joke in the anime community at large. So, why? Well, I'll get into that. But first, a summary of the plot. Our story follows Kazuto Kirigaya, a young boy who uses video games to escape his less-than-ideal life. Kazuto worked as a beta tester for a VR MMORPG, a lot of letters there, called Sword Art Online. VR MMORPG stands for Virtual Reality Massive Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. Is that even a real thing? Well, it is now, as the first few minutes of the show, we see Kazuto slip on the VR headset and get transported to a faraway land into a world where death is real. So, yeah, basically he logs onto a VR game and can't log out until someone in the game can clear all 100 floors and beat all the bosses. Also, if you die in the game, the VR headset will overload and fry your brain, killing you in the real world as well. Now, Kazuto, renamed Kirito as a mix of the Japanese kanji from his first and last name, has to defeat the bosses and save everyone. Great. Now that you know the premise, go watch it. My review will be spoiler heavy, so don't continue with this if you want to remain unspoiled. That said, it's only the first half of SAO 1, so it's not too many episodes. Alright. Still here? Good. Let's get into it. So, at the end of the Aincrad arc, Kirito is forced to defeat Akihiko Kayaba, thus ending the game early, since he was going to be the final boss. Great, right? Well, sure, for everyone else. But not for Kirito. One thing that everyone disavows this show for is that it's a power fantasy. And yes, this is true. It's crafted in a way that any young male can project themselves onto Kirito, and can be the overpowered hero that he is in-game. One thing to note, though, is that the same is true for Kazuto. Kazuto is a kid who's had a rough life. He kinda needs a power fantasy. His mom and dad are dead, and now he has to live in a household with his aunt and uncle, who we almost never see, and his cousin, who has a crush on him. And did I mention that his grandfather physically abused him after he dropped kendo to study computers? So, yeah, he's got a strange family situation. And I'm not reading into any of this at all. This is actually established as either backstory or plot-related exposition. So, Kazuto turns to escapism. He uses his video games to escape from his family issues, even if it means he's trapped there. Wait, so what? Kirito doesn't want to leave Aincrad? No. No, he doesn't. Think about it. What's the first thing Kirito does when he finds out he can't log out? He grinds. He leaves Klein in the dust to solo queue and get leveled up. The only time in the first episode that Kirito isn't grinding is when he's forcibly transported to where Kayaba makes his death game speech. In the light novel, he even teams up with another beta tester to take on specific quests to get the best early game loot. With this in mind, one of the low points of the series, the Asuna waifu cabin borefest, gains a new meaning. This is the epitome of what Kazuto wants. He wants a place that he can call home, where everything is as it should be. A father, a mother, and a child. But not just any child. A little girl that they found in the woods, with no mother or father. She's been adopted, just like Kazuto. Say what you want about Yui. At this moment in the series, she is a great parallel for Kazuto. And now that Kirito's strong enough, he can protect her. He can look after her. They can stay there forever and everything will be perfect. But events unfold and Yui is revealed to be a computer program that dies, only to be revived by Kirito doing some elite hacks. Now, this moment is widely criticized as the turning point for where SAO gets bad. Well, I also watched that episode of Mother's Basement, and I want to disagree and partially agree with Jeff. Yeah, Yui dying and then coming back to life does lessen the effect of Death Game, if we know no main characters can die, but it adds to Kazuto's character. While some would argue that he's bland, I would argue that his motivations just aren't apparent enough, and part of that's on the writing. He, in the moment of Yui's death, has access to the internal source code. He can do literally anything with the game, including saving everyone. You know, that thing that if you had the source code to do, you would probably do. But he doesn't. In this moment, he just saw a reflection of himself die. He wants to bring Yui back, something that he couldn't do with Sachi, a character that died earlier, despite months of trying. He just wants to have his happy family back. He just wants to stay in this fantasy, where up until now, everything was finally looking up. He finally got what he wanted, and is now content with the life he made for himself. But life, even virtual life, has a way of forcing you to move. Heathcliff, Kayaba, forces Asuna, and by extension Kirito, to help clear more floors. It's here that Kirito discovers Kayaba's secret. Kirito can do one of two things at this point. He can say nothing and continue his mad crusade into the 100 floors, or he could confront Kayaba. Of course, we know which one he chooses, but why? Doesn't this go against everything I've been saying about Kirito's character thus far? Yeah, sort of. You see, Kirito's character is both selfish, in that he wants to preserve what he has, but selfless when he sees people in need. That's what led to his slowly growing harem of Asuna, Lisbeth, Silica, Klein, and eventually Suguha and Sinon. And Klein is totally in Kirito's harem, by the way. They make that joke in the Phantom Bullet arc, and it is great. Not the arc, the joke. Anyway, what visual do we see just before Kirito calls out Kayaba? We see Kirito's POV, looking out on all the exhausted players who have been working diligently to reach the end of the game. Then he sees Kayaba, in the middle of all these people, but seemingly unaffected by the struggle that they're facing. He sees himself. Not Kazuto like he saw reflected in Yui, but Kirito. He sees someone who's protected themselves all while standing amongst people who are risking it all. It's at this moment where Kirito takes a stand against Kayaba, and by extension, against his own protection and isolationism. He sees what people are risking and feels guilty for being so stagnant. In calling out Kayaba, he knows full well that the game will end and he'll have to go back to his life as Kazuto. But at this point, he's accepted that. He forces Kayaba into a one-on-one battle. With Lisbeth, he fought for his sword. With Silica, he fought for his sister, since she reminded him of her. With Asuna, he fought for his peaceful life. And now, he's fighting against himself, against this life he created, for the sake of everyone else. That may not be enough to redeem SAO, but it's at least worth a shot in the eyes of those who haven't seen it yet. Okay, now that we've analyzed Kirito's character and motivations, I just want to take a moment and point out some of the issues that I cannot possibly defend in SAO. First, the pacing is atrocious. SAO's Aincrad Arc has two modes, plot and fan service. The plot episodes are fast and you can feel the progression. The fan service episodes are slow and pandering. And what's worse is the way the episodes are structured makes it feel as though you're going to be following this intense narrative, only to be stopped by all these random side stories that add very little to the plot or character development of our hero. Then the third act comes out of nowhere with the same pacing as the first few episodes. And there's no defending that, I'm sorry. But I will give SAO points on a couple things that I don't even really have to defend. The art and music are fantastic. Most environment shots look like they could be a background on your desktop or phone. In fact, when I first watched this anime, I took a screen grab of the last little bit of the Aincrad Arc and had that little floating castle as my phone background for longer than I care to admit. And the motion of the characters is fluid and the fights are pretty well choreographed. And if you need convincing on the music, just look up any opening or ending from SAO. My personal favorites are Crossing Field and Yume Sekai. Yume Sekai? I don't know Japanese very well, so Dream World. So, after all this, will you be giving SAO a chance? If so, you're in luck. It was just confirmed for a Season 3 and a movie. And even if you're not interested in SAO, check back on my channel next month to see what other fantastic anime I can pull out of the dumpster. Or just consider subscribing, so you don't miss it. My name is Ace Trainer Chris, and this has been Making the Case. How'd I do?